The Iranian threat, it can't be a discussion of the Iranian threat cannot be complete without a discussion of the attempts to create a deal with Iran and to update us to what happens with that. So in the early 2010, 2011, the Obama administration opened up a secret channel with Iran without telling anybody to try to negotiate with Iran. Until that point, the Bush administration had begun to sanction Iran, and as long as Iran would not comply with UN inspectors to ensure that their nuclear weapons program wasn't weapons based, which we now know was. So they kept up heavy economic sanctions on Iran. The Obama administration, to its credit, pushed those sanctions almost to a breaking point in Iran. It was to the point where Iranian poverty had gotten to such a point where Iranian television shows were no longer allowed to show chickens. And they passed a law that chicken was not allowed, cooked chicken was not allowed on Iranian TV because it would remind people of what they couldn't afford because of the sanctions. That caused Iran's knees to start to buckle under pressure of the economy and agreed to open up a channel of negotiations with the United States. Now, it's important to recognize that that Persians, we talked about how Persians and Arabs are different. Persians are the world's best negotiators. They are incredible negotiators, and it's cultural. It's something that they learn. So when you negotiate with Iran, you have to be at the top of your game. And if your negotiators aren't incredible and you're not willing to walk away, the Iranians will get the best of you. And that's what happened with the Obama administration. The Obama administration opened up secret channels with the Iranians to negotiate with them. Israel was not told by the Obama administration. The way that Israel found out was that Israel was bugging a lot of the phones and spying on Iran. And all of a sudden, they started hearing American voices. And they started recognizing that the Obama administration was negotiating with Iran. The flaws in the Iranian and the Obama administration's deal and approach to Iran was that, first of all, it only addressed the nuclear threat. It did not address the other threats that Iran posed. It did not address their state sponsor of terror. It did not address their attempts to gain regional control. It did not have, in the deal that was signed in 2015 by the Obama administration, it did not have a strong enough inspection regime. Iran was easily able to cheat. One almost ludicrous condition on the deal was that Iran claimed that because its nuclear program, although they claimed it wasn't military, was all based on military bases, right? And that didn't phase anybody. Is beyond understanding. But therefore, they couldn't just let inspectors onto their military bases whenever they wanted, because that would obviously be a problem of giving away military secrets. So you couldn't have them just give away military secrets and expect them to allow that. So if the IAEA, which is the international the United Nations essentially inspection agency for nuclear weapons, the IAEA wanted to inspect if they had suspicions over a specific site or just wanted to inspect any site. In order to do so, they had to give Iran 28 days ahead notice. So if they get a tip that Iran is developing nuclear weapons somewhere, so they tell the Iranians, listen, we've had this secret tip that you're developing nuclear weapons in Natanz, so we want to come inspect it. No problem. Give us 28 days to clean it up, and then you're welcome to come inspect. So that's obviously was a problem. The last thing that people had a problem with, there were a number of things that people had a problem with, but the last big issue was the sunset clause, which allowed Iran to again develop and process uranium after about 10 years, which would then allow it to shorten the amount of time it needed to have a jump out time to be able to create and develop nuclear weapons. So that was a problem. Okay. The Trump administration had obviously a completely different approach to most things, especially to the Iranian deal. The Trump administration, President Trump felt that it was, in his word, in eloquency, the worst deal the United States had ever signed, and he threatened to pull out of the deal. He made good on that threat. He pulled out of the deal, and his approach was to sanction Iran heavily, to keep sanctioning them until Iran buckled again and was willing to sign a deal that was much more in favor of the United States than the Obama administration's deal. So that was the Trump approach. It obviously didn't have enough time to work. I mean, the Trump administration did pull out of the deal, and they did heavily sanction Iran, but they didn't get the time to do enough to cause Iran to come down to the table and give in, essentially, to succumb to American sanction pressure. So President Trump lost the election, and that ended the pressure campaign that the Trump administration had. The Biden administration is taking sort of a middle ground approach, more towards the Obama administration than the Trump administration. They're trying to negotiate a deal. Iran isn't being so helpful. Iran recognizes the fact that the Biden administration campaigned on this idea that the Trump administration's approach was bad, and therefore they want to create it. They want to correct it, and come up with a better deal that addresses some of the problems of the Obama administration deal, while at the same time trying very hard to come up with a deal that Iran will sign. Iran's not so into this. The way Iran looks at it is that the Trump administration pulled out of the deal, and therefore Iran is owed something for the years that it complied with the deal, but the United States wouldn't. So they want either reparations from the United States, they want an easier deal than they had under the Obama administration, and they're playing tough. Negotiations have been going on for months in Vienna, and essentially it doesn't seem like they've gotten anywhere. There's been no statements of confidence that have come out of those negotiations. Other approaches to a deal. One is war and attacking Iran. That is one approach that's always there. John Bolton, who was an advisor to President Trump, that's his approach. His approach is that we should go to war with Iran, and that would stop all problems. Of course, we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan that going to war with a country far away in order to solve a problem also brings other problems, and that might not be the best approach. So that's why most of the consensus in the United States, at least, is that war is not a good idea. Obviously, Israel has felt that war is not the best approach also, because it hasn't gone to war. If it felt it was the best approach, it would have gone to war. So that's one thing. Another thing is that to sanction Iran until, this is the Trump approach, until it collapses as a government, as a complete government, it collapses, and then installing a democracy. Also, not so sure if that would completely work out. And the last one is sort of this combination of sabotage, which Israel and the United States have done perfectly. There's plenty of examples of that. Iranian nuclear scientists end up shooting themselves 5 times in the head, as the news reports say, which is an incredible accomplishment. So their scientists end up dead from Israeli ingenuity of assassination. Computer viruses have attacked Iran's nuclear facilities. All different types of acts of sabotage. Iranian ships bringing parts back to Iran for the nuclear weapons program have sunk. Planes have crashed. All different types of sabotage. So I think that if Bibi Netanyahu would ever write a book and come out honestly 100% with how he handled the Iranian threat, I think we'd find the whole half the book would be filled of these incredible super spy tech type of approaches, the things they did to Iran. And again, I want to end with this point. Was something that we mentioned much earlier, which is you have to ask yourself, how come Iran hasn't been able in 40 years to develop a nuclear weapon when it seems to be pretty simple that anybody that really wants to, any country that wants to, is able to develop a nuclear weapon. And I think that sabotage is the main answer. I think that America and Israel working together, probably with other countries, and Iran's opposition has been able to really hold off Iran's nuclear program. So that's it.